A perennial topic in the call center is how do you optimize your network for voice, video, and data alongside that? I mean, data is relatively easy by comparison, as voice and video is hard because they use a lot more bandwidth, which we all know now since the corona pandemic, right? That it's not that easy to have a high quality video call, or you certainly have issues with it. So it's in people's mind much more than it was before. But for contact centers and call centers particularly, this is just a topic that's there all the time. And it's difficult, actually. So the first thing I think to understand is that each use case is different. So it's totally different to get a bunch of people into a video call who have pre-arranged to talk to each other. And that's one use case, from having 1,000 calls a minute being distributed over a few hundred agents in the contact center. It's a totally different situation, because when you join a video call with people you've pre-arranged to meet, it doesn't really make a difference if you get a cup of tea and you're 1 minute late, or or everybody arrives within 5 minutes of each other is probably even reasonably acceptable. Well, let's say 2 or 3 minutes anyway, depending on the culture of the company and the country you're in. Where I come from in Ireland, it might be reasonable to turn up, with a plus 10 minutes might also be okay. So they say. I'm just feeding the stereotype now. But I think you can see it's a totally different thing, because in the contact center, 1,000 calls being distributed in the minute to hundreds of agents. Every single attempt to reach an agent must, be reliable, almost always, and it must take place within, something between a few hundred milliseconds and 4.5 seconds or so is the maximum that you can do to establish, to actually reach the agent. If you want to run things really, really efficiently. So it's two totally different use cases. And so there's very, very good reasons why your optimization for MS Teams and Zoom and whatever you might be using, Google Meet and all the others, whatever you have for video calls, and what you might do for the contact center. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second point is that every company network is different, right? So, and people like to ignore this a little bit and pretend that if you buy a SaaS tool that does your call center or whatever it might be, that it'll just work out of the box and you're going to have high quality calls across all your agents. It's just not the case. Why is that? Because one company will have a particular VPN setup where every agent logs through a particular VPN tunnel to centralized resources, like to remote desktops. And then all traffic is going to be routed in a different way. But the next company will have some particular, I don't want to get technical, so some approach to its firewall and security structure, which means that the way that you reach devices inside the company are totally different. So every network is different, and you have to deal with those. And the third thing is a bigger topic, which is you don't have control over the entire path of your calls. Let me actually share something here, because it's going to be easier to understand if we have a visual. So this is the path of the consumer is on the left. It doesn't make a difference whether it's inbound or outbound. That's just the direction. The consumer's on the left, and the agent with their headset is on the right. And the agent system is the last meter, right? So just what's on the desk. This means the phone device they're using. You could consider MS Teams a phone device, also a soft phone running on your computer, or a browser phone running inside the Chrome or Firefox, whatever it might be. All that's last meter, but also the connection the agent has to the network on their computer, the firewall on the computer. That's the last meter. The last 100 meters is the network in the contact center, which was point 2 I was talking about, which everyone is different, essentially, depends on the security requirements and so on. Then outside the contact center, you've got the last mile, which is your network service provider, your internet service providers, and the people who provide you with your, maybe if you have, for example, a managed Wi-Fi and wired network inside your company, then the providers of all that kit plus the ISP connections is all the last mile, like the local ISP connections. And then you've got a lot of stuff going on over the thousands or hundreds or whatever of miles it might be to get to the consumer. I say thousands because it's quite common for a customer to call from the USA and for the agent to be sitting in Lisbon or whatever it might be, or the other way around, right? Or to have distributed teams dealing with calls from all over the world. I mean, this is a kind of normal case for us doing contact centers. And in these thousands of miles, you actually have 3 further factors or parts of the network affecting quality. You've got the quality of your telecoms routes and telecoms interconnections, the quality and locations of where your media channels are handled, Like, so if your caller is from Texas and your media channel managing servers on AWS are in Sydney, that's going to be completely different than having them relatively near to Texas, like in US East somewhere. And so that really matters. And then the quality and location of your app hosting, where the rest of the stuff is going on. Now, the question really you have to ask yourself is, if you're trying to guarantee quality within this entire end-to-end route, is which areas do you have control over and which areas do you not, or to what extent, and do your suppliers give you some control? That's the key question. So how much control do you have over your ISPs, for example, on the last mile? And do your SLAs or your setup with them or the way that support is handled, does it allow you to guarantee that you've got a fallback route, for example, that you've got more than one ISP, etc. Right? So that's going to really matter. What's important to us is we try to give you as much control as possible over all 6 items, including on the thousands of miles. Now, that's a hard thing to do, but what it requires is that we try to have direct relations and interconnections with hundreds of telecoms organizations, and we build those with the least possible latency, and we can change those, and we often do. So we often actually change them, particularly for a customer, and this level of control is really important. Similarly, on point 2 about where's the media channels hosted, we allow that to be selected depending on what part of the world you're in, and we're providing local points of interconnection in the different countries. Now, I think without that ability to manage and get some control over the whole route, it's going to be difficult to achieve quality. And this is why I think it's misleading to think that you just buy a SaaS tool for telephony or video calls in your contact center, at least in the call center, and it just works out of the box. Like the idea that you just automatically get the best quality without having mechanisms, processes, and people in place to help to deal with all these 6 points. I think that's the key thing. It's perfectly achievable, but it's not like it just happens, by magic. There's a lot going on to make that happen.